Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are live for today's CEDIM webinar from the Industrial Design Department. And we will talk about how to recognize good and bad design in the automotive world and what to do in order to increase the chances that the design we are creating will be good and honest in the context of material surplus. The webinar will last 1 hour, and the last 15 minutes we will left for questions and answers. So please write your questions on the Q&A section. Today we are hosting David Voltner. David is a Czech Republic transportation designer. He holds a master degree from Hochschule Pforzheim, where he specialized in automotive exterior design. In his career, he had the opportunity to learn from the best in the automotive industry at Audi, Mercedes, Ferrari, and Rimac. He specialized on the combination of 3D polygonal modeling with different design techniques to fulfill structured and organized design criteria. Welcome, David.
So thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here and to give you some information and some background of my work. So I have been already slightly introduced, but now I would like to tell you about my background more deeply, because I guess it's important for the design students. And as I understood, this webinar is for, let's say, public, but it's going to be attended mainly by design students. So as was mentioned, I coming from Czech Republic, and I grew up in the family where my father was architect/designer. And I don't know how that happened, but I also was very obsessed by car. And those two passions I have somehow combined, and I just wanted to become transportation designer. But I always thought that it's something like being astronaut, that it's something what is absolutely not achievable. So later on, when I was around 15, I found out actually that in Bratislava, in Slovakia, which is the country just below Czech Republic, is a transportation design school. And I was very lucky that it's in Slovakia, because we have basically the same language as in Czech Republic, which was for me crucial back then. And yeah, since I found out this opportunity, I was just absolutely obsessed with car design, and I didn't want to do anything else. So for master, I went to study Pforzheim, what is probably one of the best schools for studying transportation design. And yeah, because of my obsession, I managed to find many internships for me, like in Mercedes, Audi, Rimac, and also Ferrari recently, as was mentioned. And yeah, why I'm telling this is that even though you are in the beginning, maybe you want to become a designer, you can really go for it. And if you will be very hardworking and obsessed with what you're doing, you can manage to do whatever you do. So these are my experiences, where I'm very happy to share what I learned in this short presentation. So the topic is that design is not subjective, and I believe personally that design is something like a science. It has rules which has to be followed in order to create visually high quality stuff, and not only visually. Also, if design would be subjective, there would be no need to study the design, because you can just tell them that this is nice because you like it, and if you don't like it, it's your problem. But this is certainly not the case in the world we are living in. So in this presentation, I would like to show you some basic rules which has to be followed in order to create a high quality thing, at least visually. And then I will give you some examples where we will compare two different products. So let's start with the basic theory, and the most basic thing, and not really basic, but absolutely crucial to know, is something little about proportion. because that's basically the first thing on a product when we are looking at it. We firstly see it in relations, like relation between shapes, relation between materials, and those materials are usually somehow divided, and this division creates a proportion between two materials. So we probably heard about the golden ratio. It's a very difficult number to remember, but if you can make your life, if you want to make your life easier, you can actually just remember the rule of 1/3 or 2/3. So that in short mean that you shouldn't divide any product or design in the middle, but it should be always shifted more towards the 1/3 or 2/3, let's say. And here we can see a nice example on the brown that we have those two materials which are separated, not exactly in a 1/3, but it works because it's simply just not in the middle, but it makes sense also functionality-wise. And also this product is defined by the curve on the side, at least from this view. And we also can see that the curve has a peak in a certain area. It's also not in the middle, but it's more towards the upper side. So this rule is very important and should be followed on every single product which you will work with. Of course, if you will work with the table and you want to design a nice table, you will not make the upper desk with, let's say, tension, but you will keep it flat. So here it's not apply. Also, this is something what totally blew my mind when I was in the second year of my studies, and we had a degree show, and one very good designer came inside to take a look what we are working on, and he told me this rule, which I never forgot since then, and I applied everywhere. And basically, our eyes see the curve differently than it's actually construct. So if we sketch or if we model straight line, our eye actually can see it as a negative line. What is something what we don't want to achieve, because negative lines usually makes the design weaker or not so powerful. And slightly positive curve means basically straight, but it's already acceptable. And whatever or however positive the curve's gonna be, our eye is gonna always read it a little bit less positive. And this rule was already mastered in Greece and in Roman, where they were building those very majestic columns. They already had attention, even though it's not really visible. They seems to be like perfectly straight. There is a small tension. There is a small curve, which actually make them feel and look more static, more powerful, more helpful. And also it works from proportion perspective point of view, because when you're sitting or standing next to the column, it can actually appear to be longer because it's going a little bit smaller towards the front, towards the up. Well, how this rule is applied in automotive design, I will show you here. For example, if you can see my mouse, there is this shoulder line which appears to be perfectly straight. And this car was designed in 2000 or 1998. And to me, it's one of the most progressive design I have seen so far, because it kind of showed a new way how to design a car. It's very industrialish design. That means that they really wanted to keep these straight lines as straight as possible. But even though they wanted to achieve this straight, they need to design the lines which has the slight tension. So if you will take a look on basically all the cars, there you will not find any straight line. There is always like a small tension which make the car looks healthy, or let's say better. Also, while designing, if you will work with the tension, with the positive volumes, that's the correct way. There is always a problem with the quality of line, because you always need to keep the line as stretched as possible. Well, you can see here the example of one which is done pretty much correct, and the other one which has a defect here. And even though the defect is like on the screen maybe 1 millimeter, our eye can see it as a mistake, and it's directly our brain evaluates it as a something wrong. So this is something what it's not happening in the car industry anymore, or let's say the curves there are pretty much all done correctly, but it's happening a lot in student project, and it's great to be careful about this and always keep in our mind that we should be very, very precise while building lines. Well, here we have an architecture, which probably many of you saw on the Netflix show. I'm not really sure how was the name of the show, Extraordinary Homes, I believe. And there was this home or house, and I found extremely difficult to look at it because it already seems like it's a little bit damaged or destroyed, because the curve we see here is absolutely incorrect. Because if you can see my cursor, this is like super straight line, then it's going into very tightened radius, and then again the radius doesn't continue, and actually it creates visually negative line again and again, a little bit king here and also here. And if I don't even talk about the white line or white curve behind, it's absolutely messed up from my point of view. So if you want to make it better, I already sketched there a line which is much more relaxed, which has better tension as well in the same time, and still follow the function of the house. Because even though there is this very like tightened radius, I don't really see any reason why it has to be here. It's just a visual thing from my point of view. So we can make it more relaxed in order to communicate this line way better. And this is pretty much the perfect example how it should be done. So it should be one continuous flow, because probably one of the keywords for architect while designing this house was flow. So I don't understand why there is no flow in the most important line of the house. In car design, we also treat a surface with a lot of attention, because the surface in the end gives us the information about the car, about the design. We play a lot with the highlights you can see here, and they are sometimes even more important than the actual line or the actual edge on the car. And in order to create a perfect surface, you need to create also, or if you would project a line on the surface, on the perfect surface, you would get a perfect curve. And you should always keep in mind these relations between them. And it's very nicely visible in this picture that you have some kind of, let's say, construction underneath, which is done in a curves. And once you have those curves perfectly done, you can actually make a surface which is going to be correct, which will have the correct highlights. Also, as well, in the surface, it works exactly the same way with proportion. You never want to have a peak of the curve, let's say, in the middle. You always want to have it in a 1/3, or in the golden ratio, in the best possible way. So keep this in mind and always try to follow this rule. And if you will not, this is what can happen. The reflection can be damaged. And this is a very extreme example for car industry, but you can somehow see this also in industrial design. While you're doing something what is not like flat, but it's more organic, you need to follow exactly the same thing in order to avoid this kind of mistakes, because our eyes can actually read highlights as a normal line, because for us it's just a line. But you want to keep your design as simple and, yeah, as simple as possible. So you would want to avoid this kind of, I don't even know how to call it, zigzag here. So here is the example of a good design and of a bad design. I really hope that most of you found the one which is good and one which is bad. The one is very famous, and the company is pretty much, let's say, proud about it. It's this Ferrari Modulo, which is perfect in every single point of view, and it follows all the rules. You can see here this division of the surfaces here, that it's, you have 2/3 and then 1/3. And there is many more details on the car which follows exactly the same thing. On the other hand, here, this Aston Martin is basically going against on the rule, and therefore the car looks like it looks like. So yeah, it has absolutely flat surfaces. All the lines seems to be hanging, even though they are super straight. The same here, here, and division of the materials pretty much horrendous, because again, it's going in the same ratio. It's 1:1 and basically 1. So even though it seems to be very simple rule, it can really make a huge difference. Yeah. Design, in my opinion, is subjective when you have two products in a very similar level of design, let's say. When you have here the example is Skoda and Mercedes. Both cars are done by very good designers. They know all the rules, they follow them, and they created products which are very like high quality design wise. But your opinion can be subjective if you will say, okay, I like the edgy car more because, but you always need to say because, you always need to say the reason behind. If you will say that you like it more, it's not really what designers should do, or people who knows about aesthetic. You always should give a reason why you like it more. You can say, I like it more because it has more lines on the side, therefore the car looks longer and lower, so it's more sporty. For me personally, I prefer soft design because it's, well, let's say closer to the nature or the natural products or stuff. So in my point of view, it will not get old so fast because the inspiration is not coming from product made by people, but from nature, which is pretty much timeless. Yeah, so here we have the slide with simple versus complex, and you can see here very nice, super simple sketch of Mercedes one, which I really love because there is nothing more. It's just really like minimum, and it's beautiful. And on the other side, we have this scooter motorcycle, which is like super over complex. And the biggest problem here, that with the complex design, you will never get the iconic design, because when you look into the past, you always had, like, from Brown industrial design, super simple stuff which became iconic. From Apple, the same. And there is actually one rule, or the rule which I really like, I'm not sure if it's official rule, probably not, is that if you see design or sketch or product for 10 seconds and then not for 10 minutes, then after those 10 minutes, you would be able to sketch the design you saw. If you won't be able to sketch it, then it's too complex, and you are not remember the design anymore. And every designer wants to create a design which people will remember, and he or she wants to create a design which is recognizable. And it can be achieved only with a simple design, which is really easy to remember. With this motorcycle, you will never remember what happened in the picture. Even after 1 minute, you won't be able to sketch it. Also, this scooter motorcycles has a big issue that all of them are the same, because all of them are super complex. They are kind of different, but because of the same complexity they have, it's almost impossible to recognize what is what. And also, this might be interesting. When you do a simple design, there are no features which can tell you from what time this design is coming from. If you do a complex design, and if you do a lot of lines in there, then all those lines are kind of reflect the time of the design. So it has a more information for viewer from which time the design is coming from. And this is what we don't want to achieve in industry. It always has to be timeless. It always has to be simple, and it always has to be fresh for a long time. So the simplicity is the key here. Of course, we can evaluate design not only visual-wise, but we can evaluate design in context. And here we can see example of the tram. The one in the left, unfortunately, is from Czech Republic, from Prague. And it's absolutely horrendous because it's aggressive. And the last thing you want from the tram is to be aggressive. It sits in the city where it should have like a positive influence on people. So if this aggressive tram makes more people stressful or don't feel good in any way, it's a huge mistake, and it's absolutely like unacceptable design-wise. Even though the design can follow all the rules, and it can be the most beautiful aggressive tram ever done, it still doesn't make any sense because the place and the environment doesn't work with this kind of design. On the right, we can see the tram, which is pretty much the opposite. It has very iconic design, very simple, doesn't really communicate any emotion, and if it communicates some emotion, it's somehow cute. And this is something what basically should be in the city. And the small cars having the same issue, because even though the company is doing a small car, they are putting the same aggressive face as they have on the let's say faster models or the more expensive models. And this is also something what I see as a design mistake, and what is unacceptable as well. On the right picture, the only thing which I found here a little bit disturbing is the color of the tram, that it's a red. And this is something what I absolutely hate when I see public transport in red color, because when you are in the city, then the tram or the bus, it's always the most obvious. And this is something what shouldn't be like that, because the city is for the people. It should be about architecture, about, let's say, parks and so on. So it shouldn't be about tram shouting at you in a red color. It should be much more neutral, and I prefer to have a colors like the house around, like light yellow or silver is great as well. Yeah, form follow function. Probably all designers already heard this, and here is also very nice two examples. The one is very high quality design which follow the functions like absolutely, and then the other design is absolute mess basically, because it doesn't follow the function at all. So to explain it a little bit more, here at the front, everything here, it's pretty much designed. This is not a coincidence that here are, let's say, air vents, air ducts through the car, because here is the air duct for the brake, and here, even though the engine is in the middle of the car, this duct works as a hidden front wing. So there is air coming into the car, and then through those air vents coming out from the car, and it's creating the downforce. So it's very function-driven design, which is also beautiful because, again, it follows all the rules and there is almost no mistake. And the only thing which I don't like here is that it's too complex. But if you want to create a car which perform on the very high level, it has to be complex. because of the aerodynamic and other engineering stuff. On the higher image, we can see car which doesn't follow the function at all. As I already mentioned, we have here some kind of air duct, but if they are going to the brake, then they are too far away and they are not efficient enough. And they are just too huge because there are no air vents. So it's not creating anything. It's just creating a visual mess. And here also, as I was talking about negative curves, we can talk briefly about negative volumes, because as you can see, this car is designed only with negative volumes, what is a really big mistake, because then the car seems to be like sick, like it's not healthy anymore. And I really believe that is something, or at least that's my theory, that it's connected with evolution, that we kind of read the positive shapes as a healthy stuff. For example, when we take a look on a fruit, when the fruit or apple, let's say apple, it's nice and healthy, it has very nice positive surface, and it has very nice like tension on the surface as well. But if the apple got rotten, the surface is damaged and the surface is starting to get negative. And I believe, I don't know, it's my theory, probably many of you will not agree with me, but I guess it has something to do with each other, that when we see the product which is designed this way, we see it as a mistake or something what is not correct. So I guess as you would take the same pill as Neo here, the red one, because the red one is correct. Well, does a not appealing design mean a bad design? And honestly, I don't think so, because even though you create a car which is by many named as the most ugliest car in the history, it still creates like a new value because of the proportion, because of the size and whatsoever. So the value it creates is actually higher than the visual value here. Of course, the best thing is when those values are connected, but sometimes it's not possible just simply because of package or because of ergonomy. And here the value is quite huge because this car has the specialty, and why it's so ugly is because of the proportions, that the doors are very low and the window is quite tall. So it's pretty much the opposite way around. But this tall window can give you really nice connection with the environment. And yeah, you can really feel differently in the car. It's a really nice experience. And even though this car is for many awful, I found it really like valuable because of these extra values it creates. And here we are going to the most controversial design which we've seen in recent year, and at least in automotive world, and it's a Cybertruck. And I'm sure if I would ask you, 50% of you would say that it's amazing and 50% of you would say that it's awful. And it's really good for designers, because when they're having this kind of controversial design, it always creates a discussion and it always pushes the boundaries of design. And this is something what we really need mainly in automotive design, when everything's starting to be very similar. Here, I honestly don't like it for many reasons, but I really like it for reason that they actually show something, that they were so brave enough to show something so strange and so different than we know. But of course, it's going almost against all the rule I just told you. It has here the exact golden ratio proportions, like front, peak of the roof and the rear. But otherwise, I don't really understand it, because they create like super simple design, and then they create here those fenders, which are way too complex, and it has basically no reason to be so complex. If they went for very minimalistic design, then it should be very minimalistic. And the same about the wheels. They are not minimalistic as the car at all. And yeah, also detail-wise. I mean, it was a really nice try, but the execution of details and of all the small stuff just didn't work out so well. And it's pretty much similar to the Ferrari Modulo I showed you, that they showed something totally different, very futuristic shape, let's say, new treatment of surface, okay, but the details and the attention to details here just, it wasn't good enough or wasn't big enough. And also the reason why I don't like this car the most is the philosophy behind, because Tesla is a company which is the company of the future. So it should introduce to us the products of the future. And I'm really fighting to somehow accept it, because it seems like a post-apocalyptic car, what is something what I don't want to see in the future. So from this philosophical point of view, I see this thing as something what is very wrong. Yeah, so basically that's complete my presentation. And also, if we have some extra time, I would like to show you in Photoshop one car. Actually, I was talking about it before. It's this Aston Martin Bulldog, and I would like to show you just by let's say very minimalistic treatment how I can achieve much more better design than you can see here, just by following those very simple rules. So if you will give me a second, I will try to switch myself into Photoshop. Yeah, so I hope that you can see my screen now in Photoshop. And I choose the side picture because on the side you can always see the car, like it's the best view for the car for judging if it's good or not. And also for me, it's very simple to somehow update it now, because it's better. It's easier to sketch than sketching the perspective. So I already created here the rule, which is only transportation design rule, that in between the wheels, here and here, there should be another only 3 or 2.5 wheels in between size-wise. And if we will take a look here, there is actually 3.5. So what are the possible solutions here? That I would create a bigger wheel, or I would make the car shorter. And also, I forgot to mention, first of all, I am focused on the proportions, because this is the most important thing. Once I will figure out the proportion, I can go into let's say curves, tension, and surface. So I already prepared here the wheel, which is pretty much the correct size, at least for this explanation. And I will copy it to the front as well. And now we see that the car is still probably too long, so I will just slightly shorten it. Just very slightly. And I will move the wheels into the correct position. So now, at least like proportion-wise, and let's say about the wheels and wheelbase, we are correct now. The other big issue is the roof, because I will sketch here what I mean. We have here now the roof, which is separated into 3 parts, and we have 1, 2, and 3, and they are pretty much the same length. What's exactly what I told in the beginning, that it should never happen. So I will try to adjust it a little bit. Yeah, and I will go with this line here to here, because here we can see the seat and the head of the driver should be here. So there is no reason to keep the roof straight until this point. So I will go like here. So now I kind of broken this ratio 1:1, and it's already, well, let's say better, even though the car still doesn't look perfect. And yeah, now we can take a look here. So we have now here this division 1, 1, and then there is very weird negative curve, which I don't understand. So what I will do is that I will basically straighten this up in order to create a better ratio between this and this. But I still want to keep the lightness what the car had before, because when I sketched here this, I make the car visually much more lower. But how I can make the car visually, let's say, higher again, but still keeping the same ratio, is just by creating a little bit of, how's it called? Let's say, tension in the surface. So I will, okay, yeah. So I will create a shadow, which then I will slightly delete away. So now, very quickly, we created this kind of curvature, which helps us to divide the side, but in the same time, to keep the correct ratio. And now, also proportion-wise, the last thing proportion-wise, which is incorrect here, is the ratio between the front overhang and the rear overhang, because the rear one is extremely short and the other one is extremely long. So what I will do is that I will shorten the front and slightly longer the rear, so they will have better relation between each other. So in new layer, and actually I can go here and I will copy the line or the selection, what is not possible. Okay, so I don't need it. And yeah, I will just slightly make the rear longer, and I will do pretty much the same with the front, but the opposite, right? So Control T and slight, yeah, shortening. Now, what I can do is to erase the car what was there before in order to read better the design we already have. And yeah, we can see if we improve it. So if I would, yeah, so you can see that this was pretty much like it was before, and this is the current state, which is better, but still I'm totally missing the tension on the lines, on the main shoulder line and also on the line here. So the simple thing I can do is just basically again select the thing I want to adjust, and layer we are copying, and just to transform the thing here. And I can add like slight tension, even though it's almost not visible, but your eye is going to read it, let's say, as a tension, as something what has the positive surface or the curve. And now I can delete. Yes, and also here what I found really strange is that you have very straight line, like in Tesla Cybertruck, then edge, which is like super sharp, very straight line edge, very straight line edge, again very sharp, and line. So what I will do here is that I will just slightly, okay, now I opened something what I didn't want to open. Yeah, so I will just slightly relax the lines I have on the roof. Yeah, I'm doing it just very quickly. It's not very precise, but you will kind of feel the difference once I will, let's say, make all the layers I did invisible. And also this line here, again, extremely straight, doesn't make really much more sense because you always need some kind of flow. So again, I will take a color of the forest behind and I will just slightly make it intention in curve. So I guess for demonstration of what I wanted to achieve or what I achieved, this is probably enough. I could spend on this design like another several hours in order to improve it, but just by showing you these very simple rules, how to follow the rules, I believe that I achieved something what looks already much more better than the original. So from my point of view, it's pretty much everything. And yeah, thank you for your attention, and I'm very much looking for all your questions.
Thank you, David. It was amazing.
Thank you.
So I can start reading you some questions here, and if anyone wants to add their questions in the Q&A. Well, the first question you already answered, which is about, so what's your reaction about the Tesla Cybertruck?
Yeah, it was very strange because first of all, I thought that it's a joke because the first image I saw was on the Instagram, and on Instagram I follow a lot of like car transportation weird pages where people jokes about design. So I thought that this is just creation one of the site, and it became really unbelievable when I found out that it's actually showed by Tesla.
Okay. They're asking in the automotive companies you've been working at, Ferrari, Audi, Mercedes, etc. How close does the car designers work with the engineers designer? He says, I'm studying automotive engineer, but I'm also interested in car design, but I want to know how connected this one with another.
Well, from student point of view, it's very different. And I was on those internships or those experience I gained during my internships. So I was doing more like artistic stuff than engineering stuff. Actually, but in Audi, I was in the motorsport design team, and we were creating the Audi GT2, which you can find on the internet now. And there was really close connection to engineering, mainly to guys who work with aerodynamics. So it was really nice because I always like sketch something, model for them, then send them back what I modeled. They told me how efficient it is and how much, let's say, downforce they're losing because of it, or how much more downforce they need to achieve. And then I went back and basically I tried to resketch everything by what they told me. But this is very special because it was very like purpose-driven design because of race car. But in normal, let's say, production design, people, at least in the first few stages of design process, don't care about this at all. They're just trying to be free, and they are trying to not to limit themselves with engineering things, because then this kind of stuff became a little bit later. But so far, and based on my experiences, I didn't get there so far. I just had this experience working with engineering from Audi. I hope that it answers the question which was asked.
Okay. Next, it says, so overall, you're talking about the theory of curves and symmetry and being even. What's a certain example of a building car of object that does follow this theory? Could you apply this this theory that you're explaining or on objects or buildings?
Yeah, I believe so. Actually, the example I had on the architecture, I guess it's a nice way how to put it, because of course the architecture I'm talking about is organic, so it has much more closer connection to automotive world. But I really believe that you can somehow apply those rules. Of course, in architecture you can also make the house or something what will be exactly the symmetrical, and it's going to be exactly the same on the left, on the right, and it may work, but I still believe that those rules I told you should be pretty much followed.
Okay. And they're asking, how much have you seen the concept of non-subjective design evolve with the passing of time?
Yes, yeah, this is actually very nicely visible on this Cybertruck, because before, let's say 3 years ago, the designers or car designers were absolutely like terrified by flat surfaces. And now we can see more and more brands going into this direction, because for some reason the trend changed and the people start to using the flat surfaces because they seems to be like modern or fresh. So from this point of view, I see some change, but yeah, from the time I'm studying, everything is pretty much the same. And even then, even when the surface is flat, there is always like, they want to create a little bit of tension because of the highlight. And this is a problem when you have a super flat surface, which is glossy, then the highlights you will get will be absolutely damaged, because even though you will create the surface or the metal sheet like perfectly flat, the color or the paint and this kind of stuff will make the surface a little bit like very slightly damaged, and it's going to destroy the highlights absolutely. So even though we want sometimes to have this flat surface, there still has to be like super minimum tension in order to avoid this kind of problematic stuff.
At the beginning, you spoke about how the human eye sees curves. I didn't quite understand how a person can see a straight line as a negative curve downfall. Could you elaborate more on that?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know what is the exact theory behind, but just, I don't know, maybe make an example or make your own exercise. Try to find something what of maybe from automotive world it's better for this. What you will find straight, and then try to make it really straight, and then you will find a difference. I don't know exactly what is behind, like science-wise, but I also found this unbelievable, and I thought that it blew my mind in the second year. But this rule really worked, and it used everywhere in automotive industry, and from what I know also in industrial design, this rule can be used when you are not creating something what is, let's say, don't want to say basic, but shape-wise basic, when you have like just something flat, or when you have yeah, table again, you just need to make it straight, or you just want to make it straight.
Okay. And how is the interaction between aerodynamicists and designers?
Yeah, it sometimes can be, I guess, funny, because we are coming from two different worlds. The one is driven by numbers, and the other one is driven by, well, being artistic, or I don't know how to call it. Like, you know, there is really huge difference between us. But it depends. If you are a good designer, then you can understand their point of view, and then if they are a good engineer, they can understand a little bit of your point of view, and it's always about communication. So yeah, it can be difficult and funny, but I didn't find it difficult. It was nice. It was nice experience to me. actually you somehow feel a little bit frustrated that you create something beautiful and then they will tell you that it doesn't work at all, or it works only from 70% and they need 100%. And you as a designer is a good challenge for you, because you need to find a way around to actually create something what works, but in the same time has the high level of visual quality.
And which is the car design that you made that you are the most proud of?
Well, so far, as I mentioned, I was in those companies basically mainly for the internship. So I didn't do there a lot of production stuff. But if I should choose one, which I really like, and I'm always happy to see it, is this Audi R8 GT2, what is a race car. And of course, in car design, there is never one guy who is doing the design, and then in the end he can say, yeah, this is my design and I'm proud about it because I did it. But there is always like a team of people working on one car. And yeah, back in Audi, I was just lucky that I got into the team which was developing this super exciting machine. And yeah, I was just happy to contribute a little, and it made me proud about it when I see it.
And what inspired you to become a car designer?
Yeah, this is probably the first sentence of the webinar. I mentioned that I grown up in the family where my father was designer / architect, and I really don't know the reason, but I loved car. And during years, those two big influences in my life somehow merged, and I just wanted to be a transportation designer. It was pretty much solved since I was 15.
And you got a really nice path. Carlos is asking, has there been any occasion in which a design that follows every rule is not feasible from the engineering sense?
I believe so, that in industry you can find some examples, or during the process you can find some, at least in automotive industry, you can find some areas where you need to go a little bit, where you need to compromise your design, basically. In industrial design, I guess this happens much more often, because in automotive design, there is a lot of money and basically you can create whatever you want. And there is a lot of people who want to have exactly the sketch you did on the real car. So there is a lot of effort put into it. But I believe that in industrial design, it has to be very different, because there is a lot of project budget driven. And yeah, when you are budget driven, you just cannot offer to have like extra milling for having a nice volume or something. So sometimes it just has to be flat. What is absolutely correct for some certain products.
They're asking that which car models that we might know did you work on?
Yes, well, I was working very briefly on the new E-Class of Mercedes. And yeah, in Audi, I mentioned I was working on this GT2 R8, which was, let's say, shown to public, I guess, 1 year ago. And yeah, I'm thinking if there was something else from car yeah, also when I was in Rimac, we did a special Pebble Beach edition. So I designed the wheels for the car and also the trunk content. So it was also very nice to see later on.
Okay, we still have a lot of questions. Okay.
Yeah, I see.
They're asking, aside from you, who would you recommend us to follow to know more about this?
Well, I guess I don't know anyone who would talk about design rules. I know that on YouTube there is one channel, and the guy's name is Sketch Monkey, and he usually talk about design and trying to make it nicer, even though it's very difficult, I believe. And yeah, so if you want to have like something similar, if you want to see something similar what I shown in the Photoshop, that guy is definitely to follow. And I don't remember the whole question now. I'm not sure if I answered everything.
Okay, anyway, let's go on, and if
Yeah, okay.
if they're not answered, they can write us, and we will find them at the end of the list. If you could combine any cars to make your dream car, which cars would you choose?
Well, my dream car is probably Lamborghini Countach, because it's just so amazingly extreme, and I honestly like design which are not compromised. So I like design like let's say Hammer or stuff which serves the purpose. So when it's a hypercar, I love this LaFerrari because it's a really beautiful car, and it really follow the function. What's amazing. So yeah, I kind of love all the cars from very, how to call it, like very different car which has a very different purpose. So it would be nonsense to combine them.
Great. Okay. Next, they're asking, really interesting on your motorsport experience. Or do you think visual design is important in this field?
Well, this is very much depends. For example, in Formula One, there is basically no design. There is just a livery design. That means the graphic on the car. If we're talking about designing motorsport, like on the very highest level, it's not really important because it's just a performance driven. But for example, in Audi, they have a customer motorsport. So people actually were buying those cars for racing with them. And there was important for them to create a very nice design in order to attract those potential customers to buy it.
Okay, and do you believe that most of the time the client's personal taste produces non-progressive design?
Well, yeah, because this is also difficult on design in general, that all the clients basically think that they can do design because they think that it's a subjective thing. Because, yeah, so usually they give you a lot of idea how it should look like, even though they have no background in design. And yes, so yeah, sorry, I got a little bit lost here. Yeah, basically sometimes working with customers will not bring the most exciting design.
What's your opinion on the new BMW M3 and 4 grills?
Yeah, I know what is the question about, and I kind of really like it because it's very progressive. It's something very different. So from this point of view, I like it because it's brave. Why I really don't like it is because it just doesn't work proportion-wise. It works very nicely from the front. I guess they made a lot of front sketches where they put the front and they made it look nice. But if you will take a different angle or the view from the perspective, it just doesn't work at all to me.
What was the car you mentioned at the beginning of the webinar? You mentioned it was made in 1997.
Yeah, I believe that the first concept of that car came in 1998, and it's actually Audi TT first generation.
Okay, and do you think all these rules are perfect, or can there be an exception to break them to get a better result?
Yeah, I guess there can be exception, and we have some examples in the recent past that some cars just were like so strange and so out from the rules I mentioned, but visually and aesthetically they were just somehow like really appealing. And yeah, but usually those cars were really like concept cars which didn't have nothing common with the real car, which would be able to produce and to sell to normal people.
And does these principles apply to automotive design also apply to product design?
Yes, I really believe so. If you will take a look on some, let's say, sculptured product design, then you will see all those rules there. I'm pretty much convinced by it. Of course, you can see product design which has different aesthetic, and therefore it's built in different way, and it's difficult to follow the function, for example, of positive surface, because it's done from material which not allowed it. But if the material can allow it, and there is a budget for doing something like more expensive and extraordinary and, let's say, very much correct, then I would say yes, if that was the question. I'm a little bit lost now, I'm sorry.
Okay, and what's your opinion on the new Mercedes design? They are very soft designs. You said you preferred soft designs.
Yeah, pretty much the question I answered. I like it, I prefer it, and actually for me it's also a little bit personal, because I went there for my first internship, and for me that was the place where I actually like learn about design. So I really take all the advice I really took all the advice they told me, and I cannot believe that they are true till now. So yes, I like new Mercedes cars, and mainly I like the concept they are doing, because they are totally outstanding.
And what are the challenges? This is a good one. What are the challenges that car designers will face in future in public transportation? And how the tendency to leave individualism to live in community will affect this?
Yeah, this is a difficult one. Yeah, first of all, I'm not a fan of cars in the city at all. I really believe that there should be some different kind of system, or system for transport people. And public transport is fine for now, but there is not this individualism, what is also mentioned. Sorry, I will read the question again. And how the tendency of leave individualism to live in community? Well, I'm not sure if there is a tendency of living individualism, because I believe that the tendency is actually pretty much the opposite, because you don't want to go with the bus because you want to have the individual road. You have different place A and different place B than other 30 or 40 people in the bus. So I believe that in public transport, we will see some, firstly, like sharing cars will be great, but there's going to be like new level. It's not going to be car anymore. It's going to be just some way of mobility. It should be something very small, something easily accessible. So that means that people will not be afraid to open the doors and to sit into environment they don't see from the outside. So it should be very like open and easy to access and small. I think that's probably the way how I see public transport in future.
Yeah, I believe this question is about the individualism, well, especially in Latin America. You see more and more only one driver in the car. So you see less people in the car, and just every person has its own car instead of sharing, instead of at least this is definitely working worse in Latin America. No, there is more urban transportation in Europe, but here in Latin America, it's a problem.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's not really like within the city; it's more like outside, right? The question is.
It's like the cities, they are following a really gigantic proportions. So basically,
okay.
You don't go out by walk. You don't take a tram because there are few lines. So and the main thing, you want to go out, you just want to see someone, you want to buy grocery, you have to take the car, and everyone
Yeah.
with its own car. So
Yeah. For example, I'm not sure if you know, Renault made a model it calls Twizy, and it's a very small electric car. And back then, I guess 10 years ago, there was a tendency that every single car brand made a concept of car like of similar dimension, that it's only for 1 or 2 people, super small, super compact. And also Audi made a concept, it calls A0, I believe, not sure. And yeah, it was a perfect basically way, and it would solve the problem you just explained to me. But the problem was that it was killed politically, because those brands created those cars because they wanted to decrease the number of pollution, of emission. But then the government said that this car will not be counted into this whole package of cars, so they won't be able to reduce emission by those cars. So it was just politically killed, what is a huge shame, because if it wouldn't be killed, I believe that we would already see a very different public transport or transport in the cities, or even in big one.
okay, thank you. Another question. I think we have to select a few last ones.
Okay.
Talking about design, which is the best starter pack to online design or to draw on tablet or program?
Well, starter pack to online design. I guess online design means like digital design, I believe, right? So yeah, if you want to do digital design, that means basically not sketching on the paper anymore. I would suggest to buy some Wacom Intuos, maybe even older, because they are like super powerful tool, and even the older can provide you a lot of freedom in your stuff, and you can really express yourself in the tool. And program-wise, definitely Photoshop. There is probably nothing more, just Photoshop.
What's your input in the R8 LMS GT2 design?
Yeah, so there I was working mainly on the front corner, where the air channel is in the car, and many small aerodynamic features. Also on the louvers, which are basically parts sitting on the top of the front wheels. And then I had there, I'm not sure how is it called, quite a huge air intake on the roof. So that was also designed by me. And probably many more details, which I will not mention right now because I'm not really sure. I don't remember everything. Yeah. So small stuff basically, but that's when you're designing a race car, you are not really allowed to create something new, because it has to communicate the car on which the racing car is based. So you cannot go really like deep into design.
Okay. Countach or F40?
Yeah, for me, the first one. F40 is beautiful car, and yeah, probably if I should follow the rules I just mentioned in the webinar, I should choose F40 because it's more simple. But just emotion-wise, I would definitely say Lamborghini.
Okay. What are some of the social problems the design is facing?
Yeah, design in general. Well, I'm not sure really how to start here. Well, I'm not really sure if it counts as a social problem, but today there is too much stuff. This is probably the biggest thing I see here. But now I probably understand the question better. Yeah, so with the cars, for example, there is quite a big social problem that there is this pollution thing, and yeah, people want to be green, so we are doing electric cars which are not so green because we need to create the energy, the electric energy, and so on. So probably the car design facing this social problem the most, I believe, because it's not solved even though it seems to be solved. I'm not sure if I answered the question well.
Okay, I think because of the time, let's go for the last one. And the question is, what is the purpose of concept car and that want to be taken into production?
Well, the purpose of concept cars is that the brand can communicate their vision, well, yeah, they're just communicating what there's going to be in the future. It's just a huge marketing tool. And that's pretty much it. And then the production, this concept design is probably done in different studios. Those studios cost like advanced design. And once this car is released, the production design is trying to take the spirit of the car, and they are trying to put it into like the production feasible car. And yeah, the purpose is pretty much that it's just marketing. They just want to be visible and they want to be, progressive.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the presentation. It was amazing.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. It was real fun. I hope that you and also the viewers and listeners enjoy it as well. So thank you again. It was amazing.
We got a lot of questions. It was, I think they would keep on dropping questions, but definitely, well, we have to conclude it. So I'm really sorry for that. But
Yeah,
I'm sure, guys, and anyone who is interested, you can get in touch with David. We can share with you his contact.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me basically easily on the Instagram. I have there the same name as I have, so David Voltner. And if you will have more questions, you can ask me there, and I will try my best to reply you as soon as possible.
Great, thank you, David, and thank you everyone who was following. Hope everyone enjoyed it. And with this, we closed.
Yeah. So thank you again. Ciao.